I was born rich. The sad thing is I was 40 before I grew enough and matured enough as a Christian to understand what rich really was. Between the age of 15 and 35, I walked about as far from a godly life as you could. My parents were elder, Sunday school teacher, so committed to God that my dad didn't want us to call him father because he felt like we all shared one father and it wasn't him. I just walked off and left that. I was consumed by the world, by money, and the other things that the world had to offer a young man that was willing to reach out for it. At the age of 30, I realized I was going to be a father, and I knew that I wanted my children to have a different life than what I was living at that time, so I reined myself back, but I didn't return to God. The first few years that I had children, I had become a good man. My neighbors would tell you if you needed help, I was who you could turn to, but I wasn't a godly man. And I was still consumed by the things of the world. Everything in my life I put before God: my home, my farm, my job, my family. It got to the point where it was so bad that I just had lost all perspective of what was good, right, and just in the eyes of God. And I had lived in such a way 20 years prior to that I didn't feel like I had a right to pray, to ask God for forgiveness or for help. So there was just me on my own, and I had become arrogant enough that I felt like everything that I had achieved, I had achieved it for myself. Then my world started to fall apart. I lost my job, lost my home, lost my farm. My marriage was falling apart. I lost my health. And I was in a point of just utter aloneness. I can't describe it any other way other than just being totally alone. Everything that I had placed any value in, I was watching it being jerked out my hands, and I couldn't stop it. I didn't know what to do. I was driving up the road one night, and it was raining, dark. And in front of me, there was just, the night was lit up, and I thought, what in the world? And when I got there, it was a sign from a small country church. And on that church, at that church was a sign, and on that sign were these words: "Fathers, if you aren't leading your children in the ways of God, where are you taking them?" I panicked. I knew that I wasn't leading my children down a godly path, and I had been enough of a leader of me in my time in the military and in the workforce to know that purpose and direction were things that were qualities of a strong leader, and I really had no purpose and direction when it came to God, and therefore I hadn't shared any purpose and direction toward God with my children, and I was leading them just about straight to hell. I got out in the rain, and I prayed for the first time in probably 20 years and asked God to forgive me. I had been raised in such a way that I knew that if I asked for forgiveness, and it was from my heart, and I was repentant, that He would give that to me, and I just rejoice in that fact every day now. Then it was an act of desperation. I was afraid that not only was I going to lose everything financially that I had, but that I was going to lose my children too, and I just couldn't stand that thought. I started attending church, taking my kids. We became active, my kids in the youth group and me as a sponsor. One year, after a few years at TCTC, my children went forward one night, and it was a celebration. The day that I was allowed to baptize them, it was I can't describe it. They were making their own commitment to God, and I was committing them to Him at the same time, and it was, words just can't describe that. As we grew in church, and as our family grew, I remarried and married Diana, and which brought another godly influence into my home. We changed churches a couple times. We just couldn't find really the church that we were looking for, but we were active, and we studied and we prayed, and I grew and matured as a Christian, and realized that my job was to be the spiritual leader of our household. It's a tough job. We've got 5 kids, ranging in age from 23 to 1. And it can be an uphill battle sometimes. But we started looking for a church, for a home, full time for our household, and we tried 2 or 3 different churches. We went to a couple times. We went to one church for 2 or 3 years actually, and we were really active in it. But my family, they weren't getting what they needed there, and I had grown and matured enough to realize that church wasn't about me. It was about my household, and we left. We couldn't find a home, and like I said, we went to a couple churches a couple times, and one Sunday morning we got up and got dressed, and we didn't have a clue where we were going to go. And I'd prayed all morning, God, if you'll just lead me, if you'll tell me, I'll listen. I'll take my family wherever you want us. We actually got in a vehicle and pulled out on the road. We still didn't know where we were headed. I looked over at Diana and said, I think we'll go to Harrison Christian Church. We walked in the door, and a man greeted us, and I told him, I said, I don't know where we're supposed to be once we get in the door, but I believe in my heart we're supposed to be here. That man was Terry Rigler. He took us to Sunday school, and we came upstairs, and Harrison Christian Church has become our church family and our church home. And that's my God story to this point.